Today on Aging Untold, no contact relationships.
Estrangement is one of the most difficult things for older adults to live with.
Nearly 30% of Americans are estranged from immediate family. We'll explore why it's happening. Plus, a heartbreaking moment many caregivers face.
They know that relationship. They've just forgot the label that they use for you.
A loved one with dementia forgetting your name. We'll explain why you shouldn't take it personally and how to respond. And later,
this is my purpose right now. For whatever reason, that's what Lord wanted me to do.
grandparents forced to raise children a second time. We go in depth on a program that supports grand families. Experts with advice and solutions. You're watching Aging Untold with Aging Well Coach Catherine Ambrose, gerontologist Sam Craddock, aging expert Amy O'Rourke, and board-certified physician Dr. Ray Rogers. We're all getting older. It's about time we talked about it.
Welcome to Aging Untold. We're all familiar with blocking people online, but what about disconnections in our families? Could you imagine not having any contact with your parents or a sibling for years? Some polls show nearly 30% of Americans are estranged from immediate family members. Sam, why do you think this is happening?
I actually think it starts with a really small, usually, misunderstanding or miscommunication. And then like any infection, it's allowed to take hold, and then it just grows and it festers. And then I think pride steps in the way. I think oftentimes reconciliation is possible. It's just nobody wants to take that first step. Now, there are times where it's by choice and it's for safety and it's because it's an unhealthy relationship, and you have to honor that. It's as hard as it is. But sometimes and oftentimes the ones that I see are, you know, there was a misunderstanding. Maybe it was during a time of grief from the loss of a loved one and siblings fracture. I see that a lot. But I think it's just these small little things that happen, and then it turns into this big explosion, or not even, just a disconnect.
I think the saddest thing is we always say that life is too short. You know, we say that all the time because really it is. And I think the saddest thing is when you have these disagreements or you're estranged for whatever reason, if you don't get the chance to say goodbye before the person is gone.
Right.
I worked with a woman who, I was her healthcare decision maker, and she was estranged from her son. He had a bad drug and alcohol problem, and he just didn't want to quit. He had taken a lot of her money, and she was really clear. And she didn't say it angrily, she just said it very matter-of-factly, I'm done. So as time went on, her memory got worse and worse, and she stayed consistent. I do not want my son around. But I could see all the caregivers that struggled with her decision, although she never changed, and the pressure that I felt, you know, get her to call him, get him to come, and I just resisted that. But I think about it, and I think, what would I do if I were in that situation? And I think what I think about is, if I'm gonna be okay if you die, and I'm gonna be okay, then I'm okay. If there's any niggling of maybe I should reach out, then listen to that.
The question for me isn't if they die. I kind of feel like at that point, you know, just because somebody's terminal, just because, look what you've missed already. Look at the damage that's already been done. And, you know, just because there's an illness doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to be an okay time to roll back in either.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
On the contrary, look at what damage, I'll just be disagreeing, what about the damage that would have been done if she had reached out? So it kind of, it does go both ways.
Yeah, I wasn't disagreeing with her on that.
And I do see some people that probably shouldn't stay in those toxic relationships. But when it comes to estrangement, I have to say, to me, I almost feel like this might be the one that hits me hardest, that my greatest fear is that someday maybe I'll learn something magical, the right words to say that might make all the difference and be too late for someone I love. Right. Estrangement is one of the most difficult things for older adults to live with, and oftentimes they are estranged for a very significant reason, like, you know what you did. But still, I think that if we can give each other grace, most of the time we're going to be better served by that, because people don't show up and they might not regret it for decades, and then it really is too late. It is what it is. Oftentimes it is due to mental health, drug, alcohol issues, and these are unsolvable problems sometimes. So how do you help someone deal with that, the fact that they are estranged? And then what is the collateral damage, like grandchildren?
Absolutely.
There's no relationship with grandchildren. Like, you can't even take your grandkids to Disney World.
Well, I think I have mixed feelings, because I think it's kind of depends on the individual. So like in your circumstance with your client, she's probably has done everything she can. She's given all she's got, and she says, hey, and I'm comfortable with it because I've done as much as I can. So if there are grandchildren involved, if he's not changed, she wouldn't see them. So, and that would make sense, because the bridges you have to come through is too dangerous.
Right.
So you have to look at the different circumstances and all that. But if it's just someone holding on because of the pride, or I just don't, you're just not gonna, it's control. A lot of times people use it as control.
Bingo.
I have a problem with that.
Bingo.
Yeah. And don't roll back in
I'm
afterwards and say, where's my inheritance? If you've been fractured for all these years, don't step back in and expect that there's a payday at the end. I see that oftentimes as well.
Yeah, it's very common.
And it's very, very common. And then there's anger. The will, it's a document. It's not a therapy session.
Right.
It's not gonna fix things.
Yeah, get therapy, family and marriage counselor.
Sure.
Look for therapy to help you, because it is so painful. And if you talk to other older adults, what you'll find is that it's actually normal. As awful and painful as it is, it's so normal. And some people have even worse situations. So it's kind of good to hear what's going on with other people.
But it's
Yeah,
really hard to
absolutely.
rebuild trust when it's been broken. So that's a hard road. And you probably are going to need mediation or counseling or
Yep.
something, because it's
Yeah.
hard.
Definitely.
It really is.
Definitely. Still much more to come on Aging Untold.
Coming up, for millions of grandparents, their roles are changing. Many are raising children again. We'll show you the challenges they face, especially when it comes to finding a home. But first, a sign of brain change, not a lack of love.
We don't judge people for cancer symptoms, and we can't judge people for brain change.
When dementia causes loved ones to forget your name. Our advice on how to navigate these moments with compassion and understanding.
It's a moment that can be heartbreaking and confusing when a loved one with dementia forgets your name. It can also leave you wondering how to respond. We'll talk about that in a minute, but first, Dr. Ray, what exactly is happening in the brain that causes that kind of name confusion?
Well, you just have to remember that the brain is an organ that can undergo disease just like anything else. You can have heart failure, lungs, but the basic thing that's going on with cognitive decline is that there's an injury. And there's an area in the brain, usually the temporal lobe, and that helps us to remember, to orient ourselves, and to know where we are in time and place. So that's one of the first areas that are hit. So when you have injury there, you will start to have more cognitive decline, and you will forget.
It literally breaks your heart when it happens. I've had it happen. I know it is devastating. And the only thing I can tell all the viewers and everybody that I've ever worked with is they may forget your name and you feel like they've forgotten who you are, but they don't. They know that relationship. They've just forgot the label that they use for you. And it's okay to forget my label. But knowing that I'm still there and I'm still loving you, and you recognize the relationship. We see with daughters, they oftentimes become the mom because that's the nurturer, that's the caregiver. And then sons, they sometimes become that spousal person, so they get called by their dad's name or the husband. And then they feel very awkward because they think it's a matrimonial thing or an intimate thing, but it's not. It's they're the protector now, and they've taken that role on, and it's okay. I know it hurts, but it's okay.
One of my favorite stories in all the world is Sandra Day O'Connor.
Oh yeah.
And she would go to the community to visit her husband who had a memory impairment, and then he got a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And she would go to the community and sit down and have lunch with her husband and his girlfriend. And when I heard her interviewed, there was so much love for him that I thought, that is really unconditional love. She went beyond him knowing her, but went with the emotion that she felt for him all those years. It was so moving, and it was a really teaching moment for me to impart to people that I work with that are struggling with this.
Yeah, I think the emotions, like you said, it's just a label. It's a label, but you have to remember the emotions that they are feeling, they're showing you.
Yeah.
And that's what's the most important thing.
And it's not a failing. We don't judge people for cancer symptoms, and we can't judge people for brain change.
So
Absolutely.
true. Yeah. And as hard as it is with dementia, don't correct. Really don't correct, because no matter who you are, none of us want to be corrected. And the minute you get corrected, you feel like you need to defend yourself.
Right.
And so that puts that defensive situation going on. And then we have that combativeness that rolls in. And then you hear, oh, they're combative. Well,
No.
unfortunately, what are you doing
You did it.
that's allowing this or enhancing this? So, you know, you've got to learn to just breathe through this. The minute it happens, just breathe, because
But
you're
then-
grieving at that moment.
The other thing you can do is participate. You can allow them to explore.
Yeah,
Help them to explore what that memory is of that person they're calling.
exactly. It's validation. That's an amazing validation theory is one of my favorites with dementia, and that's validating that those emotions are there and that feeling is there. And at this point, I need the comfort, or I need the protection. I need what that relationship brings me. And if they may not remember any name, you might not get called by the wrong name. They just may not remember any name. Well, we've all done that.
But they will remember how,
You made them feel.
that's right.
Yeah.
They will always remember how you made them feel.
And when you treat them by validating that way, you're really respecting them and yourself. You're using your knowledge and your maturity to handle it correctly.
Well said.
Well
yeah.
said.
There's so much more to come on Aging Untold.
Coming up, among the cluster of cast iron, you'll find a seasoned collector. Why he says the hobby is about more than cookware. But first, imagine trading retirement plans for diapers and formula.
So you were starting all over.
Starting all over, and I was a single grandparent raising 2 grandkids.
More on the push to support grandfamilies next.
For millions of grandparents across the country, their roles are changing. They find themselves not just a grandparent, but raising children again. Kristen Crowley shows us the push to support more grandparents who are raising children for the second time in their lives.
Life doesn't always go the way we plan.
When your youngest son became an adult, did you think, that's it, my parenting days are over?
It's funny you asked that.
Sue Turner, a mother of 3, had life all figured out when she became an empty nester.
My plan was, when he graduated, I was going to go on a cruise for myself.
Did you ever get to go on that cruise?
No, ma'am.
Instead, Sue traded in the sun and the waves for diapers and formula.
About 12 years ago, Sue got a phone call letting her know she had a newborn grandson. But the call wasn't just to let her know he arrived. It was to ask her to take him home. His parents couldn't care for him, and the baby was born with drugs in his system. He otherwise would have been taken to foster care. For Sue, the choice was clear, and it wasn't the first time she had to make it.
At this point, you already had his older sister.
Yes, I got her about a month before. She was 18 months.
She's not alone in this unexpected life change. It's estimated more than 2.5 million children in the U.S. are being raised by a grandparent. Some are forced to drain their bank accounts to provide for their grandchildren. And one of the biggest burdens is housing. Sue knows just how important that housing is. She lives in a building specifically for grandfamilies. all 36 units at Pemberton Park in Kansas City, Missouri, are dedicated to grandparents raising their grandchildren.
If this apartment for grand families didn't exist, where do you think you'd be right now with your grandchildren?
Struggling.
Pemberton Park is the only one of its kind in the region.
We had a waiting list the day that we opened.
Ed Lowndes is the executive director of the Kansas City, Missouri Housing Authority. He says not only does the building provide the space needed for grand families and amenities like a playground for children, the rent is based on what the grandparent can afford, no more than 30% of their income. He says without this complex, finding housing that fits the needs of both generations is not easy.
The focus still seems to be on either family or elderly, but not that combination. So we're very proud of what we have here today.
Had there ever been talks of bringing more of them to this area?
There have. The biggest impediment is funding.
This is my purpose right now. For whatever reason, that's what Lord wanted me to do.
Sue is still making plans.
Oh, that's basketball? Okay.
But now, at 65, they consist of raising her grandchildren to be good people who go on to higher education, who live happy lives, and eventually, when the time is right.
My goal is still to go on that cruise.
God bless these wonderful grandparents that step up and raise these grandchildren.
Yeah.
And what an impact that they're going to have on the years to come, raising
But
these
you're
people.
seeing this happen more and more and more. Either the child, their children are addicted to drugs or things like that, or killed,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Car accidents.
or chronic
And,
medical conditions.
Yep.
I mean, you're just seeing it such more often. And them coming up with that concept. I
Love
think
it.
maybe
Yeah.
other people will model that. Maybe other cities will model that.
I know. What is it about Kansas City? There's such creativity out of nowhere. It's so random and so beautiful and so creative.
Yeah.
Well, that's our nature.
I love that the apartment building was on a sliding scale for the rent and no more than 30%. And if we could do that for our age community and for these grand families.
I'd really like to see more builders and more contractors address this population shift that we have and build more housing for older Americans and then the grand families too.
Right.
That's amazing.
After the break, admirers who are passionate about pots.
It's like being a kid waking up at Christmas.
We take you to one of the largest collections of cast iron in the country.
Cast iron cookware has been a heavy-duty kitchen staple for hundreds of years. And for one man in Louisiana, it's his connection to that past. He's been collecting cast iron for more than 25 years. Rick Porcher is in Baton Rouge showing us this man's passion for pots.
This is some rare stuff here, Mr. Henry. Oh, be dog. But this is the one that you can't find. This is the one with the lid on it. This is the rare.
Clayton Mitchell may just be the Pope of pots.
That is the only one. That's a wall pack. That's the only one known right there.
The king of cast iron.
They're so pretty, man. That's the worst one of all of them. That might come out of there from
His craving for cookware dates back more than 25 years.
Started going to these flea markets, met so many of these cool people, and about 10 years down the road, you figured out it was about the people more than it was about the pots. You might want to buy.
Over the years, he's amassed quite a collection.
It was in every mini warehouse. I didn't have a garage left no more. I didn't have a carport. I didn't have a bedroom left no more. My dining room was full of cast iron. You can see how they progressed with the Dutch oven.
Close to 7,000 pieces in all. Most of them much older than those pots handed down by your grandmother.
50, 60, 70-year-old cast iron really ain't that old. If it's 100 years old, 125 years old, that's when they originally started making this stuff.
Clayton built this 8,000 square foot climate-controlled showroom to share his passion with collectors from around the country.
You might want to buy.
He hosted them as part of the Griswold Cast Iron Cookware Association's national convention.
Oh my God. It's like being a kid waking up at Christmas. You go downstairs and there's like a new bike under the tree. This is like 1,000,000 times better than that.
Scott McCarter has collected cast iron for more than 30 years.
And this is by far the most impressive collection I've ever seen.
The second largest collection in the country.
If you started today, you couldn't collect this stuff in all your life.
But for Clayton, it's still about the people.
I like it. It's not fun until people can see it.
Now that's a pot addiction that I can get into. I love that.
I love it too. I so want to take my husband there. And I don't know a lot about cast iron, but I know the difference between new and old cast iron.
Yeah.
And my husband loves to cook, so does his cousin, and they would be in heaven.
Well, it's really not about the pots, it's about the people. But look at how he has changed his initial purpose that he was so passionate about and just encompassed everything else with it.
And look at all the people that were wandering around his 8,000 square foot warehouse and how much fun they were having, kibitzing about cast iron. There's something for everybody. I'm just amazed at, there was a society of
Right, the organization. I was like,
An
wow.
organization of cast iron pot collectors.
Yeah. So,
In perspective, 8,000
square
square
feet.
foot of pot.
yeah.
Of pot.
Pots, cast iron pots, Sam.
Oh, okay.
Oh, not pot, not pot.
I just love how excited these men are
Yes.
about cooking and about cooking in the
No.
cookware.
They're not
Yes.
excited about the cooking. They're excited about the
pot.
cookware.
I think they're
I
excited
think
about
there's
cooking.
something about cooking.
and then their engagement.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah,
fun.
the engagement,
So fun.
hanging out with people who are like-minded.
I can
yeah.
guarantee you there's not any soap and dish soap in that building.
Oh, no.
No dishwashers
My husband would
there.
be very upset.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. That was a missing piece in that
It was
story.
a missing piece in the story, is that there was no dishwashers in the room. Yeah. If you like scallops, the best scallops come from a cast iron skillet.
I loved how they talked about how old the castware needed to be, the cast iron needed to be.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and we're all getting older, and it's about time we talked about it. Until next time on Aging Untold.
On the next Aging Untold, home makeovers with older adults in mind.
A lot of seniors that say, oh, I have a plan. I'm just going to have a bed brought into the dining room, and I'll just have to go up 5 stairs to go to the bathroom. And it's not a good plan.
We'll show you the changes you can make now to help you age and stay in your home later.